Hi. Apologies for being in black and white. I will be arguing against the introduction of gray wolves from the perspective of the hunter.
And my position for this project was pro for the reintroduction of wolves as a park ranger.
To ensure the economic needs of the hunter, gray wolves should not be introduced to ecological territories that the hunters use. To define the terms I'm going to be using, game will just refer to any sort of typically prey species that are hunted by humans and also wolves. And then hunters will refer to humans that use hunting as their job, as their occupation. Hunters have adapted their hunting methods to the current structure of ecosystems, and while introducing gray wolves could potentially stabilize the given ecosystem after enough time, typically 25 years, after enough time, the unstable number of game puts hunters at risk, and also during that time, that could put hunters at risk of economic failure. And this is especially due to the specialization needed to become an established hunter, as well as the time needed to network as a hunter. The introduction of wolves in the ecosystem results in a decrease of game population and increase of human interaction, and as well unregulated behavior both in game and wolf, all of which threaten the livelihood of hunters. The unregulated behavior due to the introduction of wolves could be due to wolves hunting the game and having them move to different areas at different times than what hunters are used to, which could throw off the hunting season. The tools that could be used to regulate fear of wolves by humans are usually unhelpful and are usually ineffective, both at regulating wolf behavior and human fear. And that time needed, the 25-year gap, again, could just lead to the economic downfall of that certain niche that hunters fill up.
Is it my turn?
Yes.
Okay. So wolves are often blamed for a lot of things. I'm just gonna get started. Okay, so other factors like disease, injuries, birthing problems, theft, etc., are 9 times more likely to cause death in livestock than wolves. And oftentimes, hunters or farmers think that, hey, if I kill the wolf, problem solved. Well, hunting and killing wolves cause more livestock deaths than if the wolves were left alone. And for every wolf killed, there was a 5 to 6% increase in livestock deaths. And the reason for this is when you kill a wolf, it's one less from a wolf pack. And all the numbers count. So oftentimes these wolves have to resort to easier prey. And so wolves are an important keystone species that promote biodiversity, and they help scavenging populations. So hey, that's pretty good. That's nice. And yeah, pro wolves.
And then this is the debate portion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this would have to be your point in case of the wolves hunting easier livestock.
Mm-hmm.
That would have to mean that the wolves were already at a certain population and that us getting rid of wolves is not helping. What about the introduction of wolves into an area that didn't already have wolves? And that prey and those species surrounding them already weren't used to wolves.
Well,
because typically there's a time of depletion
mm-hmm.
after that introduction.
Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming that if there's no wolves around in the ecosystem, and this is an ecosystem where wolves should probably be at, I'm assuming that there's going to be a lot of elk.
Yes.
Now, hunters alone could very well take care of all of those elk. They can definitely keep their numbers down if they tried.
Yeah.
And if there were policies passed to where they could go, hey, But if it were an issue, what was your question?
If an area already doesn't have wolves, how does the introduction of wolves affect, it's in my brain. So, the argument of the reduction of wolves being damaging to, cattle and such,
Mm-hmm.
how does an area that already doesn't have wolves affect statistic, that effect
I don't know.
through the introduction. That's fair.
I honestly don't know. I don't know the answer to that one. Now I can assume that, let's say this is just a regular old farmer, farming town.
Yeah, farming community.
Probably not the best place to relocate wolves in general. Maybe if it was, in a forest, then and if wolves were necessary, then farmers could definitely be warned, like, hey, wolves are gonna come chill around, don't kill them, please.
Yeah.
But I don't really know the answer to your question too much.
That's fair. Oh, I need to get rid of that. Okay. The article by Jonathan and Frank in my research discussed the influence of a fear ultrasound and as a regulation method by humans in order to reduce human and wolf interaction. But typically they were ineffective, such as ineffective to reduce both human fear of wolves and also to reduce the actual effects of what it was supposed to do. By limiting that, it didn't actually stop wolves from interacting from the community. It's in my brain. So the introduction of wolves would, regardless of the actions by the farmers to mitigate the interaction of wolves and their cattle and also just the farming of itself, we don't really have a lot of methods in order to stop those interactions from happening.
Yes, that is true.
Unless we have barricades, but even then.
You know how in the cases they have the fences,
Yeah.
and they're barely fences, and they're just strings of barbed wire.
Yeah.
But getting an actual real fence is expensive.
Yes.
And that's really unnecessary for
a majority of the interactions with the wildlife.
Farmers should get donkeys. Donkeys are really territorial. Donkeys.
Donkeys. And of course there's dogs.
Yes. Or there are actually in places like Iceland area.
Yeah.
They got big old dogs and they have collars with spikes on them in order to protect the dogs from wolves. Because
I always thought that was decorative.
No.
But actually that's where the case study was for the ultrasound fear.
Okay.
Because people would typically have to travel through the forest with their dogs in order to feel any sort of safe.
Oh, I think wolves are gonna do their thing.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, a wolf isn't gonna eat a human unless
Well, yes, but the fear of wolves could lead to erratic behavior from humans, because if you introduce wolves to an area that hadn't previously had wolves, then humans are going to act erratically because of their fear of those wolves, especially since they don't have any previous experience with a wolf or a wolf pack.
That's true. That is true. I don't know, maybe programs or something would probably help.
But again, that would take a certain amount of time. And that would also mean that people are willing to do it. From the hunter's perspective, if you tried to introduce a new program that specifically targeted wolves as part of the process to get your hunting license, then that could see a lot of backlash from the hunting community, especially if they're using hunting as some sort of occupation, a way to get money, because that's another limiting factor of getting an income.
Okay, well then, from a park ranger to a hunter, what do you do when the elk becomes too much and your livestock, not your livestock, but your crops and the vegetation all starts to go down because the elk are taking too much of it. Is this something that you take into your own hands?
A combination of that and also reallocating the resources that would be used to reintroduce wolves and putting that more forth into predators that are already in that area,
So,
such as like black bears.
black bears? Black bears don't eat cattle.
I mean,
black bears
no,
are
you were
a
right.
scavenger.
It was a specific species. But just as a general statement, reallocating the resources that would have been used to introduce a new predator species and more so into regulating the predators that are already in that area.
What predators would there be other than wolves?
That's a good question. I remember I put it down here. I guess coyotes, but even then,
Coyotes are like
are more
carnivore
scavengers.
things.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't really have an answer to that.
Wolves, man, they're the only
Wolves.
issue. No, they're the only solution. I need to remember where I'm standing in this.
Then I suppose putting more money into hunters, like increasing the demand for like elk related.
That I read a paper and they had actually done that where they actually took wolves out because the hunters wanted more access to elk.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. It said in the article that they were doing fine. Keeping down the elk themselves as just the hunters, but they still reintroduced the wolves anyway in Yellowstone. This was in Yellowstone. By the way.
Okay.
I forgot to mention that.
And that's where the 25-year statistic came from. The stabilization of Yellowstone came after about 25 years.
Destabilization, like with
With elk populations in relation to wolf populations, and also the wolf populations becoming established in that area.
Yeah.
Do we have any more points to like throw at each other?
No, I'm bone dry.
Cool.